I've been asked today to speak on the subject of Christianity and secularism. Many of us live now in secular states, and that poses challenges for us, and I've tried to explore some of those challenges. In particular, I've made a distinction between hard secularism and soft secularism or civic secularism, and I believe there's a considerable difference between these two things. Hard secularism is fundamentally opposed to religion. It believes that religious points of view are toxic, they're poisonous and potentially dangerous. And of course, we've had many examples of hard secularism in the 20th century with the atheistic and communistic regimes of Eastern Europe in particular. And clearly I don't have much sympathy for that approach. I'm opposed to it. And I've encouraged people to try and resist it where it still shows itself. But I've wanted to distinguish that from soft secularism, which I have very different attitudes towards. I believe soft or civic secularism is potentially a good context in which the Christian faith might live. It may not be the one we would most prefer. We would like a world which is fully subject to Jesus Christ as Lord, but I'm afraid that's not going to happen until Christ comes again. And between now and then we have to come to terms with the realities that surround us. Civic secularism is based upon the idea of freedom for all. It follows the idea that within the public realm, that is the realm of public benefits and public goods, people should not be subject to any kind of religious test. They should not, for instance, have to pass a religious test in order to be educated or in order to vote. They should be accepted as citizens on the basis of their humanity. And therefore, we live in societies which are protective of religious freedoms and freedom of conscience. And these allow the Christian churches to be authentically Christian, to focus on not running society, not preserving a national identity, but actually being followers of Jesus Christ and proclaiming his gospel. So I've tried to work out some of the positive advantages so that we might address our contemporary society, and also so that we can discriminate between what's good and what's not good and pursue our witness for Christ in the midst of it all. Well, various points were made after the lecture. Questions about Islam, for instance, and the fear that many people have, not least in the West, that the Islamic religion is gaining ground and might displace Christianity. I personally don't have that fear, because I think even so that Islam is not attractive to many Westerners, and also it remains, despite everything, a relatively small proportion of the population. And of course there are many good Muslims with whom Christians can get on very happily and pursue common goals. So that was one question that was raised. Other questions were, how do you express a Christian voice within a secular society? And I tried to indicate there my own context in the United Kingdom, where the Church of England, which is the established church, it doesn't see itself as a state church, but as an established church, also increasingly sees itself speaking not just for its own version of Christianity, but for all religious traditions, providing a platform, as it were, to speak to power, to speak to government. And many people of other religious faiths are supportive of that and actually value it very much.